35,000 non-citizens are currently serving in the U.S. military. The recruiting process often leads to drafting non-citizens with no ability or desire to make them citizens. Joining us now to share more about the process and the impact it has on those serving is CEO of VetComm.us, right?
Yes, VetComm.us.
Yeah. All right, Kate Monroe. Kate, good to see you.
Good to see you.
We just used the word draft. There's not a draft. I don't know how that word got in there.
There's not a draft currently. There was, though. They previously, in other generations, did get drafted.
So many people don't realize that there are so many non-citizens serving in our military.
Correct.
You do this for a living, and you didn't know how many there were. But
correct, yes.
Tell us what you found out.
Well, so David Brambilla, he's the Area 5 Vice Commander for the Department of California for the American Legion. I went and had a meeting with him, and I said, hey, what do you guys care about? What should I be focusing on? And he said, well, I'll tell you right now that we're deporting veterans who didn't make their citizenship during the time that they were in the service. And I said, okay, so we have non-citizens serving. That's number one. And I said, what are we talking about? A couple hundred people? He said, no, 35,000 people are currently serving that are in any different state of trying to get their citizenship. I'm not talking about people who just crossed the border illegally. I'm talking about people who came to our country at 2 months old, 2 years old, 7 years old, grew up here, went to high school here, and elected to go into the service because a recruiter promised them that they were going to get their citizenship, when in fact we have very little mechanism or desire to make them citizens.
That seems kind of hard to believe. It seems like the logical thing to do for the U.S. military is when these non-citizens join the military, help them go through the process to become citizens.
I mean, I don't know what more citizen a thing you could do than go and offer to lay down your life for your country. I mean, I found it appalling. I mean, it just shows you how our country tends to use people and think that they're disposable, and that's how they feel. I interviewed a lot of people this week, some of which got deported and were there for 13 to 15 years, deported to a country they never lived previously, and fought
after their service.
After their service.
Wow.
Correct. And so I think that we need a centralized contractor, if you will, that handles this, because what they tell me is I get to a base and I move bases and I go overseas and it never gets handled. So they get out thinking I'm going to be a citizen and they haven't even really started yet. And so we don't even let them re-enlist if they're not citizens by the end of their first enlistment. So it's just, it's a debacle.
And you have in the past, when we've done interviews, I think it was a couple of weeks ago when you said we're dwindling. Our recruiting in the military for citizens.
Correct.
People don't want to join the military, and pretty soon we're going to be in a really dire straight situation.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually in that situation now. We are in a recruiting crisis. It's actually past the point of it being a crisis, and you wonder why, because generations of people that this kind of stuff happens to, what do you think they tell their next generation? Right. They're not going to make you a citizen either. And so I think if you serve your term, you are discharged honorably, you should be able to swap out your DD-214 for your citizenship, and it shouldn't be this giant hassle that it is. People cross our border illegally, we give them everything. You serve our country, and you are in fear every moment of possibly being deported. It's unacceptable.
Is anything being done to remedy this?
So they passed a bill that was supposed to help this, and everybody went, okay, great, we took care of that. In reality, it helped 50 people total that were deported. Out of hundreds of people. It helped 50 people. And if we don't amend it, this next recruiting cycle that we go through, we are literally right now advertising, hey, non-citizens, come in the military, we're going to make you citizens. I just got off the phone with old recruiters and new recruiters, and they tell me there still is no mechanism for this to happen easily. So we are going to disingenuously invite non-citizens into our military to curb our recruiting crisis and use them, and we don't have a path for their citizenship.
It's hard to believe the brass would not take attention to this and take it more seriously and help them.
What they're taking seriously is that they have a recruiting crisis. Yeah. And in order to fill that gap, they are willing to do almost whatever it takes. Not fix all their woke nonsense, but they are willing to promise non-citizen citizenship.
Which isn't true.
It's a travesty. I met a gentleman who got out of the military, his son and his grandson serve. He got out of the military, got in a DUI, and because he got a DUI like anybody else could get, he got deported and went to jail, spent 13 years across the border, lost touch with his family, and we just now got him back, and the only reason we brought him back is because he was 2 days away from dying of a heart attack. Cool. That's the only reason that he got to come back into the U.S. No. And when it's fixed, he may have to go back.
All right, Kate Monroe, it's hard to believe, but
Hard to
I'm
believe.
glad you're bringing this to our
Yes.
attention. It needs to be known.
I agree.
All right, thank you, Kate. See you soon.